Welcome back. So let's talk about the protest that started yesterday, April the 16th, which was coincidentally Nigeria Police Day. We must also say congratulations to the Nigerian police for celebrating their day. But we also will say it's a shame that on the same day they were celebrating their day, some elements were busy disgracing them across the country. So let's balance that. But let's get to the main conversation for the day, which has to do with the protest that started yesterday. We don't know whether that protest will continue today, but from the letters I saw, it was just for yesterday. We've been joined in the program by the convener and national coordinator, Coalition of Arewa Civil Society Groups, Abdullahi Mohammed, joining us from Kanu, our Kanu studio. Also joining us from Port Harcourt virtually is the River State coordinator of Take It Back movement, Amanye Kings. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh dear. If Mr. King can hear me, perhaps I would like to start from Port Harcourt, Mr. King. Give us an idea. Okay, I understand. Let's talk to you, Mr. Abdullahi. Let's talk to you, Mr. Abdullahi, since you're available for you to weigh in on the conversation. Last year we had in August, I think 10 days in August, 1st to 10th, we had that end bad governance, and this year we had the initial 30-day rant, and then it's culminating in this protest. We also have tags like end bad governance, issues around cyber law, Cybercrime Act, issues around free speech, and the many tentacles of what the people are advocating for. Maybe you give us a premise of what you understand in terms of your characterization of what is playing out in terms of people in the last, say, 2 years of this administration, almost 2 years, coming out to say we're not happy with the state of things.
Well, thank you very much. We must understand there's a fundamental principle in democracy, and that is freedom of speech and freedom of association. The Constitution allows people to, protest freely. It is their right. But we must understand that in terms of protest, or whenever there's a protest, the first thing that should come to the mind of average Nigerian is, why are we protesting? There should be a clearly defined motive for such a protest. You understand? Now, I'm glad, like you said, the first, I think, protest that happened in the life of this administration was the End Bad Governance, which started around August 1st last year, 2024. It was a 10-day affair across some parts of the country. But I'm speaking maybe here in northern Nigeria, states like Kaduna, Maiduguri, Kanu, and other places. We've seen how that particular protest had actually turned violent. But before then, there was a clear representation of why people are even protesting. It was clearly defined. It was a protest against hunger. Of course, yes, people were hungry, people were angry. A lot of things were not going so well in the country. Shortly after the administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So people now took up to the streets. It was clearly defined that this is what we are protesting against. It was so peaceful to a point, at least speaking from experience here in northern Nigeria. Before it turned violent, and we saw destruction of lives and properties worth millions. So after the 10 days end bad governance, we could see some semblance of sanity returning. People realized that, yes, of course, it is in their own right to protest. But if it is going to be a protest, it should be clearly defined, like I said, that it's going to be a peaceful protest. But when it turns to arson, it turns to near anarchy, it becomes something else. That even in civil spaces, nobody will condone such kind of mindless destruction of public property in the name of protest. Of course, we've seen that, like I said, happen in other places, especially in Kanu and Kaduna. But coming back to... Hello?
Go ahead, please,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullahi.
Yes, coming back to what happened in Abuja and Port Harcourt, you know, some members of the Take It Back movement have actually reached out to us to see if we could join this particular protest, to make it a national protest. But we sat amongst ourselves, among the civil society here in Kano and other parts of northern Nigeria, and we asked ourselves, why should we join this protest at this time? Is it really tenable for us to jump in the ship and protest? Of course it is okay for people to protest, but even the definition of that particular protest is quite lost on us. First, there's a hashtag. It is it's called Repeal the Cybercrime Act. You know, the protest is for the Nigerian authority to repeal the Cybercrime Act. You know, and then of course, inside of this, there is also the issue of hunger again. Yes, we mentioned hunger as well. And but if you look at it, we should. Part of what we said is now, in fact, it should always be protests. Should always be the last option. It should always be the last option. It is when we exhaust all the avenues, all the peaceful avenues, when we try to reach out to the authorities to look into some of our demands. Now, when they fail to do that, then at that point we could embark.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, just a moment, Mr. Abdullahi.
Even having a clear understanding of why you're protesting. Like myself now, I got to know
my apologies.
The repeal protest.
Can you hear me, Mr. Abdullahi?
Yeah.
We're going to take it to Mr. Kings in just a moment, but in 30 seconds, I want to read something to you. In the letter I have in copy from some of the protesters who embarked on the protest. They say this protest is organized by the Take It Back movement to address numerous anti-people's policies by the government. Example, repeal the Cybercrime Act, rising insecurity in the state, economic hardship. I have another letter that says, I write on behalf of the Niger Delta Congress to notify you of our planned protest, peaceful protest in Rivers State against the declaration of the state of emergency in Rivers State, the suspension of the governor and the legislative arm by the president, and the repeal of the repressive Cybercrime Act. Are you saying these are not clear enough? So let us understand what you're saying. In about 1 minute, I'll go to Kings.
Okay, fine. If you're talking of these are disjointed issues. Of course, if you are protesting, like you call it a national protest, there should be a convergence of all other aspects. Now, if you're talking, for instance, the declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State, of course, the president has his own rights, and what he has done, whether it's constitutional or not, it's something for those in the lawyers and other persons that had interest for them to talk about. But you don't just bring the issue of Rivers State into the national debate that because there's a declaration of state of emergency. Of course, these are issues, but it has already been solved because the president had already brought out his reasons for that declaration. Now, if you're talking about insecurity, nobody should tell us about insecurity in northern Nigeria, because that is what we are battling, and that was the main reason why we decided that.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, just a moment. My apologies. I give you 30. So I'm trying to understand you. I don't think I do understand you, but I think you have made your point clear. Mr. King, let's come to you. We've been waiting for you. So let's piggyback from what Mr. Abdullahi said. He said it has to be a convergence point, you know. Yeah, you may have a right to talk about state of emergency, but you can't tell them about insecurity. It's within his right to say the things he wants to say, although I'm trying to understand them. But maybe your take on this issue of the protest, maybe reacting to some of the things he said, and why this protest is important to people like you.
The protest is very, very important to the Rivers people. Protest is very vital because the Rivers State people we are not at war. We are not experiencing any major insecurity setback, so to say. And the Rivers people came out peacefully to speak, to express their grievances, because as it stands, we don't have a government in Rivers. We are the two arms of government, elected governor, the elected governor, the House of Assembly, have been suspended for no just cause. And so the Rivers people came out to speak, and the police stopped them. It's not an issue of whether is the right time or what are we supposed to protest about. Protest is a fundamental right of every Nigerian. And so I don't see any reasons to pop down on people who are trying to air their view. So it's a very pathetic situation that in Nigeria we don't have right of expression. We don't have right.
All right, Mr. King, another point he made earlier on is particularly for the northern parts of the country who did not participate in this protest. It says that, well, they're not able to really identify with some of the issues raised for the protest in terms of a state of emergency, security, and all of that. Do you have an issue with that? The fact that he says for northern Nigeria, they didn't participate because they couldn't relate with the issues that you're protesting for? I hope you got me. The connection doesn't seem to be as friendly as it should be this morning. But if you can, Mr. King, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh dear. We'll try to resolve that connection challenge with Mr. King, who's joining us from Port Harcourt. Of course, he is the convener of the Take It Back movement in Port Harcourt. Mr. King, let me just do one more confirmation. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, I'm going to take my question again, and that is regarding the point that was made by our guest in Kano, Mr. Abdullahi Mohammed, saying that, well, for the people in northern Nigeria, they couldn't really relate with the reasons for which you're protesting, and that's why they decided to stay away from it. Do you get that point? Do you think it's a fair enough position to take?
It's not fair because the people in northern Nigeria, they are experiencing insecurity. One of the major reasons why we came out yesterday to express our grievances was this repeal of the Cybercrime Act. And this section, if you look at section 24 of the Cybercrime Act, which states that as a presenter in the studio, if you say something and it's not right, and I come to the media to say this is not right, and you feel that what I have said, my review, or let me say my review about your statement brings pain to you, you can actually sue me and I go to jail for 3 years. So there is a tendency by this Nigerian government to suppress the voice of the people. There is no free speech. You understand? So there are things that it's not just about the emergency room in Rivers State. The emergency room in Rivers State was one of the things that brought us out yesterday, but another thing was the repeal of the Cybercrime Act, which I think it's not it will not do us any good. Like what we saw yesterday, journalists were beaten, and there was no press presence in the protest because people's cameras they will seize cameras. And it's only in dictatorship, in the military regime, that we see things like that. But we are beginning to see them in civilian governments. So that calls for concern. And that is why we are speaking up. And we are saying that we cannot take this. Because they are doing it to me today. Who knows the person they are going to do it to tomorrow?
All right.
Press.
All right, Mr. King, just a moment. I need to bounce off some of the points you made of Mr. Mohammed. And let me just ask you, Mr. Mohammed, he said, well, he doesn't think that's a fair position to take because this fight is also, it's not just for people in the River State, it's for Nigerians, because when that law is being implemented, it will affect everyone. So just to be clear about your position yet again, are you saying that everything is hunky-dory for you when it comes to Nigeria and you're fine with the status quo in terms of the law, the actions of government and all of that? Are you fine with it?
No. I cannot say completely and absolutely that everything is going so well in this administration. No, I can't say that. Of course, there are challenges, numerous of them.
So what are those challenges for you, Mr. Abdullahi?
I think nobody should tell us about challenges here in northern Nigeria because we are faced with one of the greatest existential threats, which is insecurity. So we all know about these challenges, and that's what we're trying to combat. And now talking about what he said about the repeal of the cybercrime law, we put out a press statement yesterday in effect, to that particular hashtag. What we're trying to say is there should be dialogue. You understand? How many, like myself now, I got to know about the Cybercrime Act 2024 about a week ago. So there should be a broader engagement for people to understand what is actually in that particular bill. What are the merits? What are the demerits of that particular bill? So by the time you do that, when we have a broad-based discussion for people to engage in dialogue, of course. If you take, for instance, the issue of the tax reform, the recently passed tax reform, there was a huge outcry. But when they now put it on the table for public presentation, people get to understand which is right, which is not. I think we should be able to do that. And that was part of what we said in the press statement yesterday, that there should be greater dialogue, across board for people to understand what is actually in that particular bill. And if we are protesting, if we are calling a protest, okay, for the repeal of that particular bill, let it be on that. But by the time you begin to have different, ideas, portfolio of issues like that, so people get confused at what exactly we're looking at. Like I said, talking about challenges, the government, of course, there are a lot of challenges. Don't forget, people protested against hunger last August. And it was across board, you understand? So even Northern Nigeria took part in that particular protest. But now let's
Mr. Mohammed,
I don't know for other places, but government, in my own opinion, had actually done something. Of course, I'm not their spokesperson, but during the Ramadan, we saw how price of foodstuff here dropped significantly.
I'm trying to understand you, Mr. Mohammed, because on the one hand, you acknowledge that there are challenges, but on the other hand, you said earlier that perhaps some of the reasons that the Take It Back movement are protesting do not resonate with the people of the North. So I'd like you to provide some form of clarity. Which block of people are you talking about from the North? Because we can cite positions expressed by Northern leaders at the National Assembly who have espoused that indeed the North has been shortchanged by this particular administration. So which Northern groups are you quoting when you're saying that the agitation of the Take It Back movement does not resonate with people from the North?
Point of correction, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying completely it does not resonate. I mentioned issue of security, and that security challenge has always been the one that is on the front burner, especially in Northern Nigeria. Now, of course, nobody can deny the fact there are challenges in the North. That is one of the greatest challenges we are more concerned about. Now, if you're talking about what the National Assembly leaders are talking about being shortchanged by this administration, well, it is up for them to look at it. It's pure politics as far as I am concerned. It does not take the fact that the president is, like I've seen statements that there's the urbanization, of the North by this present administration. Well, if you look at it now, the president has his own reason for doing that. Of course, we feel bad because we feel there are some people, across Northern Nigeria and other places too that needed to be part of the administration. But if the president sees within himself that this is what he feels is right for him to do that, and he has not breached the constitution, of course, nobody can change that. We've seen what happened with the previous administration. It is not about who you get in the position, but how competent those people are. We've seen a situation whereby, like I said, in the last administration, something similar played out, where you have Northerners take over key positions. But what do we have in Northern Nigeria? At the end of the day, what I'm looking at is most of the things these people do is they consider government appointment as a personal vehicle for self-enrichment.
So
if you are given
coming there now,
if you look at, let's even go back to the last.
So, Mr. Mohammed, if you reel out all these challenges, why does the Take It Back movement agitation not resonate with you or with the people of the North that you cited?
What the point I'm trying to say is, if you're looking at, you have a variety of issues you bring all together on the table. You are talking of repeal of the cybercrime. You're talking about emergency rule in River State. You're talking about insecurity. What I'm trying to say is, if we're having a greater challenges, now take, for instance, you talk about security, or rather general insecurity in the country. It will resonate with us so much, so that we'll look at it as a national agitation or a movement. We'll come together. But by the time you begin to look at it that, okay, fine, the Rivers Assembly, there's an issue with that, the repeal of the cybercrime, which most people in Northern Nigeria I'm sorry to say, does not even understand what's even in that particular bill. I stand to be corrected. So what I'm looking at is there are greater issues that you could bring to the table. It should be a national dialogue for people to key in.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi.
I cited example of the.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, because of time, we need to. If I may come in, Mr. Abdullahi. All right, Mr. Abdullahi, if I may come in, so that we can go to Mr. Kings. But from what you have submitted, it sounds to me like there's more reason for you to start your own protest than any other person. There was a carnage on the plateau recently, and there has been all kinds of insecurity. And when you say you've been dialoguing, well, you have a right to say what you have to say, and we'll always respect what your opinions are. But just like when I hear you, like you're saying one thing on the other end and agreeing with us, on agree with the Take It Back movement on one hand, perhaps they didn't put it well for that section of the country to be able to come along. But let's take it to Mr. Kings. Mr. Kings, in rounding off, what is the way forward now? Is there going to be more protests just as we begin to wind down?
First of all, let me respond to your guest in the studio. He keeps hammering on northern Nigeria, not aligning with the demands of the protests. Is he trying to tell me that the northern Nigeria does not read? Or is he trying to tell me that there are no members of the National Assembly from northern Nigeria where they will hide bills? They will hide bills and pass them overnight, and people, there is no... The National Assembly does not give room for people to actually be part of the process of lawmaking in Nigeria. So what I'm saying is there's no right time for you to speak out. This protest that happened yesterday, I was shot at. The national president of the NDC was shot at. We have people who collapsed, who are still in the hospital as we speak. But that does not deter our to speak up. You understand? I'm struggling to hear you. The network is poor, but what I want to say is there's no right time to speak. And in as much as I'm concerned, in as much as the Rivers people are concerned, we were out yesterday to register our voices, and we will continue to do that from time to time. We notified the police, we notified all security agencies to give us, at least to provide security for us. But we got there, and what we see is that the police was, instead of providing security for us, they were against the Nigerian people. And it's a situation that I don't think it's going to change anytime, because we have an illegitimate person who is in the helms of affairs of the police, in the person of the Inspector General, whose tenure has elapsed and is staying in office on extension. You understand? We have people who tenures expire and they leave office. But when you see a situation where they keep extending the tenure, then you see that there is something at the back that they are trying to do. There is an agenda.
All right, Mr. King. I think we've gotten your point. Gentlemen, we must thank you both for coming on the program, sharing your perspectives as far as the issue of national interest is concerned and the issue of the protest that started off yesterday. We must thank Amaye King, Rivers State Coordinator of the Take It Back movement, who joined us virtually from Port Harcourt, although the network did allow us to get all his submission. Abdullahi Mohammed is a convener and national coordinator, Coalition of Arewa Civil Society Groups, joining us from News. Thank you for coming on the program as well. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're not just done yet with issues of national importance. We'll continue that trajectory in just a moment. Join us again.